Hey, what's going on, everyone? Moose here, Airguns of Michigan, and today I want to talk about something that we oftentimes I hear a lot of people talk about this stuff, but in fact, what I find is that most people don't quite understand the concept of hammers and hammer weights. So I want to talk about it, specifically about the FX Impact today. Yes, I do know that this is not an impact hammer. We'll get to that, but my tungsten is actually in my air gun right now, so I grabbed a Maverick one just to show a basic weight. But let's get some more light on the subject here. Probably should have already had these on, but I did not. I apologize. So there, that should be nice and bright now. But what I want to talk about is, with your FX Impact, when do you need a hammer? When do you need a heavier hammer? What hammer weight do you need? You know, exactly why is it people always talk about hammers? Well, to demonstrate this, I want to draw a very, and don't make fun of me for my drawing of a of an FX Impact. We're going to call this our FX Impact block. We're going to call this our plenum, and then we'll have our main body here. And then out the front of this, we're going to have our adjuster. So this is our valve adjuster. So inside of this is a rod that comes back through our valve body in the back. So we actually have a valve that sits there. And what happens is, where most air guns actually strike a pin on a valve, that is not how the impact works. How the impact works is your hammer is encased inside of a hammer guide. So we'll call this dark solid object your hammer guide, and then your hammer spring. So that's terrible, but you guys understand. So what happens with the impact is the hammer, when it's cocked, it gets pulled back, and then when it slings forward, it actually pulls the valve rod forward, allowing air to fill the block and exert itself through your port, down your barrel, blah, blah. I'm bowling now. So when exactly, let's get rid of this so you guys don't make fun of me. But when is it exactly that you need to upgrade your hammer? Well, I want to talk to you guys about that today. And I want to talk about a few different iterations of what actually happens. We're going to actually turn on our scale. This is a scale that I use to weigh and sort my slugs. There's grams. So this is a stock impact hammer. And if we put it on the scale, we have about 6 grams. So actually, we're going to bring our paper back here because we're going to write those down. So stock is 6 grams, roughly. And then what happens is in the old times, when you would buy a slug power kit, you would get these little washers that you would put onto your stock hammer, and that would bring it up to, so first gen slug power kit brings it up to roughly 7 grams, but it also does something else. It no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. It, in fact, compresses your spring more because it adds more depth to your hammer. So when that hammer comes back, it actually helps to compress the spring. And they'll all do that from here on out. And then you get into what my preference is these Huma hammers. And so if you take, this actually comes as a set. They're, I don't even remember how much they are, but you can actually buy the Huma tuning set. And the lightweight one is 7.4. So Huma light is 7.4 grams. And then you get the heavier Huma hammer, which is 8.5. So heavy, 8.5 grams. And then what they did was, I noticed that in the Slug Power Kit, you now get this heavier hammer from FX. And it is a huge jump up. So second gen Slug Kit is 14.3 grams. And then you can actually go up to the tungsten, which this is whopping huge. 26. So then you've got the tungsten, and that is 26.5 grams. So when exactly is it that we need these heavier hammers or to add hammer weight? Well, it's all a balancing act between how much regulator pressure you have to how much hammer you need to consistently and smoothly, I guess it boils down to consistency, open that valve. So what I find is that, you know, if you have a stock 22 caliber, 25 caliber, or even a 30 caliber, and you just want to shoot pellets and everything else, you know, the stock hammer does do its job. It really truly does at those lower reg pressures. I would say no more than, say, 110 bar. Once you decide to take any caliber, in my opinion, above 110 bar on your second regulator or just your regulator, depending upon the version of the impact you have, then you're going to want to start thinking about a heavier hammer. I find that the Huma heavy hammer is good from about 100 to about 145, 150 bar. I have really good luck with these. You know, everybody's, you know, obviously depending upon how you tune your gun and how your gun is set up with the hammer wheel and everything else, it's going to affect this. But I find that this is a very good, you know, almost every one of my impacts has this exact hammer in it. It just does a great job. Now, with the introduction of the second gen slug kit with this 14.3 grain, you know, if you're going to shoot, I would say 130 to 170 as far as your reg goes, this is probably a great option because it's got more weight by what, 6 grams over the Huma. You know, this appears to be tungsten as well. They're very close in matching size, just a smaller iteration. Now, if you want to get up into those super highs, that's when you're going to want this full size 26.5 grain, you know, massive hammer to actually, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Impact one is actually heavier than the Maverick one. So I apologize if they're a little off, but I have found that with the tungsten, whether it's in my Maverick or was in my Maverick and or is in my Impact, you really only need this if you are planning on running your gun to the ragged edge. You're trying to accomplish the same thing that all these guys have been bringing you with the 800 millimeter barrel and the you know, shooting 40 grain slugs and everything else, because the violence of this thing as well as the lack of tunability after you add it, and we're going to touch on that in a second here, is just absurd. It really truly is. So unless you're super dead set, which I have learned that I am not, on shooting 40 grain slugs at 1,080 feet per second and getting half a magazine out of a tank, throw that one out of the way. So this might be the better option, the second gen slug kit, or even just sticking with the heavy Huma. Now, one thing to be careful of, and the reason that we wanted to do this video, is a lot of guys will go out there and they'll say, well, I installed the slug kit, but I only plan on shooting lightweight slugs, and really I wanted the slug kit more for the pin probe than anything else. And then they add this hammer, and this hammer with its weight is going to affect your tunability of the gun. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is even if you turn your power wheel all the way down to 1, you may not see much of a decrease in speed from 16 to 1. And the reason is because this hammer is so heavy that there's no tunability any longer, whether you're at 1 or 16. You're going to see a slight difference, but not a lot of difference. So for those of you guys that are trying to do those dual tunes where, you know, I want on 16, I want to shoot a slug, and on, 4 or 8, I want to shoot a pellet. You know, sticking with the Humas is going to be much easier to tune, especially in those lower ranges where, let's say you have a 22 caliber and you're running 120 bar. Having one of these in there as opposed to something super heavy is going to make your gun more tunable. It just is a fact of the matter. Ask me how I know, because every one of these has been in my impact. Every one of these I've tuned with. Every one of these I've done the exact same things that I'm talking about. So in fact, that is truth of the matter. So the purpose, like I said, behind this video was to explain to people, you know, just because you hear everybody on the forums or you see the guys that are shooting that heavy stuff and they're like, yeah, I'm running a tungsten hammer. Listen, you add this tungsten hammer to your stock impact just to add a tungsten hammer, you are going to be in for one heck of a surprise. Not only is it going to be incredibly loud and violent in your ear, because this thing is going to rattle back and forth and smack the living daylights out of your valve, but it's also just going to overpower the gun. And no matter how low you try to tune it, it's just gonna just smash that valve wide open. And you're gonna have a really hard time with your valve adjuster, right? Taking your valve adjuster, and you're gonna lose all this too. So even if you turn this puppy down to, 1, this hammer is gonna smash into this valve so hard, it's going to compress this spring so badly that not only is it going to bottom this out, you're going to hit that, but you're just going to lose all your tunability out of your valve as well. So, having a good valve and everything else is really important to understand these different reg pressures with why or when or even if you need a different hammer. Listen, if you've got a stock gun and it's shooting great and you're good with pellets, don't worry about this. This is advanced stuff. This is for, okay, I no longer want to shoot that 100 bar, that 105 or 100 and maybe even 110. I really want to jump up and get more out of my gun that I'm currently getting. I want to shoot slugs. I want to shoot them faster. Now we start talking, right? So when I generally tune my gun to be on the bench, I take the heavy Huma hammer out and I put the lightweight hammer in it, because I get more fine adjustment with this than I do with this shooting slugs or anything else. So I hope that helped everybody out. I hope it helps you guys to kind of understand when and if you actually need a hammer, and why you may not need a hammer. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions, drop them down below. I'll do my best to answer them, but just trying to bring you guys the honest God's truth. And from there, I appreciate you guys. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe if you have not as well. It doesn't cost you anything. It just certainly helps me out. And with that being said, I'm Moose. This is Airguns of Michigan. Be good to each other, and God bless.